Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day life. Let's start with the video.
I stand testimony to the saying, everything that is too good to be true probably isn't true to begin with. That's a sum up of my relationship with my high school sweetheart, with the man that I chose above and before any other to spend the rest of my life with. That ended up only lasting about 5 years, and this is why our divorce came to be. To think that we went through hell just to end the relationship like any other basic, toxic, and average relationship when everybody, including us, had the utmost faith in the relationship. We were high school sweethearts, like I just mentioned, and went through the whole separation because of university thing before we were reunited once again right after. He proposed to me and we lived together for 2 years before he proposed to me, and we spent 2 more years as an engaged couple before we had the most beautiful wedding. Everything about the way we handled the relationship promised that it would be a healthy one. I'm not sure how I missed how utterly selfish he is. He'd rather do than to grant someone else something before enjoying it himself. That went completely over my head for the many years in which we were dating, and then the 5 in which we were married. The realization hit me so hard that I started putting together situations that happened from the first year of us being together. I hope I'm not alone in this when I say that I was utterly blindsided by love. The thing that tipped me off and made me realize how much he is unfit to be my husband was when he decided to purchase our first home and what he claimed to be our dream one without even running it by me or seeing if it works for me. I remember going back home one day on a very busy weekday. I was exhausted and emotionally drained from a job that I wasn't very fond of anymore. So many struggles roamed my mind that he was so aware of, yet he still chose to prioritize his wants and his needs or his desires above and beyond any of my requirements, and it really showed in the house that he decided to buy for the 2 of us and on my behalf. It was in a rural area that was as far away from my workplace as it could be, which meant that not only was I going to be suffering from a job that I am unhappy with, I would also be injured from the long distance and hours of transit every single day. I was so disappointed when I first walked into the house, not because I'm greedy or have my head in over something bigger than what I can afford, but because I know that the money we had in our savings account is definitely worth a better, bigger, and more decently located home, which were none of the traits that this house possessed. And yet I was the bad guy for not acting overly and outrageously overjoyed by his poor decision-making abilities, and the fact that he was throwing away most of our money over an unworthy house. I knew I wouldn't be able to call this place my home the moment I stepped foot into it. It was so crammed and misproportionate, and the paint and colors were battling one another in a way that hurt my artistic-oriented eyes in a literal way. He had not taken into consideration that we were looking into having kids of our own, and the space that he picked obviously spoke loud and clear of it. Because there was 1 main bedroom, a kitchen, 2 bathrooms, and a basement that was big enough to fit a couple of bedrooms, but the overall build of the house could never be considered fit for a couple expecting or wanting to start a family together. Now that I'm looking back at the situation, maybe it was just that he didn't want to start a family with me, period. The neighborhood that the house was located in was literally nearly abandoned, and for the money that we saved up for a car and a house to be spent on something of this low of a quality, I genuinely couldn't help but be brought to tears when I let it sink that this was a place I would be living for probably a good chunk of my life. I was torn to shreds, and my expression showed nothing but that. Understandably so, or so what a rational person think, because and apparently my husband thought I was being unreasonable and too picky, even though he knows damn well he effed up by buying this house. I'm not even talking about the fact he didn't even inform me or go through the options with me while he was deciding for something that was so major in both of our lives. Like, that couldn't have been more disrespectful in and of itself. He just stopped by the house that one evening, and which I was already feeling really low, and told me that he made a purchase on both of our behalves, and wanted to show it to me. I thought that maybe he had bought a bike, or maybe even gone crazy and bought the car, but I would have never guessed that he had taken up all our savings and thrown them away so carelessly, knowing how much blood, sweat, and effing tears it took for us to amount up to that sum. And somehow, I was the one having fingers pointed at her and being excused of all sorts of things that were unreasonable to the situation or careless of his emotions, etc., etc. I stayed in the house with him for 2 nights before it was too much for me to bear. I packed a suitcase for myself and drove the 5-hour trip to my parents' home because I couldn't even bear to be in the same room with him, knowing how low he thinks of me and how inconsiderate he was when doing something so serious. Like, seriously, was he expecting me to just smile and wave it off like it was a simple bad purchase of a Cheetos bag flavor or a poorly colored painting? Is that a normal thing for people to do? And am I just being over the top and actually over-dramatizing the situation? What would you have done if you were in my shoes? I stayed over at my parents' home for a couple of months before he even called to ask them to talk to me and help him get me back home, which further solidifies the theory that he never wanted or intended for both of us to live in that house and start a family together. They had him come over to the house and had my brothers and sisters as well as his parents stop by so they would have an intervention in which they would hear out both ends of the story and place blame where blame is due so everyone could move on with their lives. We were both very obviously determined to stick to our grounds because he obviously knew what he had gotten himself into and had no regret about it, and I was convinced that I wasn't in the wrong. Only difference is that everyone actually sided with me and blamed him for not even referring to me when purchasing something so expensive and life-changing. He was so adamant on remaining selfish and keeping up the facade of I'm faking my selflessness to get other people's validation, in a way that convinced me more than anybody that he wasn't about to change anything regarding what he did, and that this actually represented the true nature of the person he was, rather than the image that I put up for him all those years. It also hurt me more than it did anybody else that I made the decision to put an end to the marriage and file for divorce just a week after this intervention. I don't think I could forgive myself for regretting this marriage 5 or 10 years from now, knowing that something this messy happened, and I still chose to ignore all the red flags and signs that should have ended it. Update. I got plenty of comments on the last post saying that I was probably underestimating the area, and the prices were that expensive as if I don't know anything or the first thing about real estate, which I do. Like, I meant we were already looking into buying a house, and I was very familiar with the prices around different areas of the city. I know damn well that that money should have bought a far better house, especially in the area that it was in. Nevertheless, I still took the time to look up prices of houses around the same region and descriptions, etc., and found a huge monetary difference between the money my husband bought the house for and the prices for the houses around it, which either means it was sitting on a gold mine or my husband lied to me about the money and somehow managed to buff up the bills so he could use the money for something else without letting me in on it, which is also something some of you suggested. And for those of you asking for an update, I actually don't know how we are going to settle the amount of money that was spent on the house, or if we're going to get the law involved in settling it equally rather than just handing it on friendly terms, because at the end of the day, it's not as bad of a situation, or at least not enough for us to end the marriage on bad terms. Not the a-hole. I smudge had it coming, and I'm sorry to hear that you have to go through the emotional trauma that results from dating a narcissistic and brutal person, such as your hopefully ex-husband by now. Not the a-hole. He was definitely hiding something regarding this house, because he wouldn't have gotten so butthurt and offended by a reaction being poor to a poor situation if he wasn't being eaten away by guilt over something that he did, rather than objectively being upset over your unfair reaction. Not that I'm saying your reaction was poor, because it is, objectively speaking, very reasonable and adequate, seeing the gravity of the situation. Maybe he was using or planning on using all that money to fund an affair, or some sort of gambling or drinking or substance addiction. For the money difference to be large enough for you to fall apart as hard as you did, it means that it was a lot of money and could only be explained away by something equally as serious. On one hand, how much could have you guys really saved in 5 years? But also, even if it was a small margin, when talking real estate, it's a shiz ton of money, and you definitely need to treat the situation with aggression to get back what is rightfully yours, which I hope you've already done. Here's the next story. My wife, 24F, Mary, and I, 23F, have been together for 3 years, living together for 2.5, and married for 1.5. I am the oldest of 5 in my family, and my mom was a single mom, so I was expected to help out a lot. Cooking, cleaning, caring, etc. Mary's mom is a Som, who did all the chores, and Mary said she was never taught how. I asked her mom about it once, and her mom said that Mary used to pretend to not know how to do things to get out of doing them. Mary said it's just something she did as a kid, but she doesn't do it anymore. When we first moved in together, I was happy to fill the role of the caregiver, stocking groceries, doing dishes, laundry, etc. After COVID started, I realized how much energy it takes to maintain a clean apartment with 2 adults being home 24/7, so I asked Mary for help with maintaining housework. She was super understanding and agreed that it is her responsibility too. But she would only clean if I asked her to. I was patient and asked for her help when I needed it, and eventually she caught on. I have noticed that her helping isn't very helpful. For example, I mentioned that it would be nice to get some help with the laundry, so she said she would do some. She said it was an emergency load of underwear and asked if I needed anything else washed. I said some leggings and sweatshirts would be nice, thanks. The next day, I folded a load of laundry and saw she washed 10 pairs of her underwear, a bunch of her sweatshirts and leggings, 1 pair of my leggings, and 3 pairs of my underwear. Example 2. She cleaned out the litter box but didn't fill it back up afterwards. I heard her comment, "Oh, I need to fill up the litter box," and I acknowledged, but the next day it was still empty. I got pissed at her and told her that it was unfair to the cats, and she should have filled it up when she noticed it was empty. She said she forgot to. Example 3. When it was her turn to wash her dishes, she washed all of them except for our cat's dishes. They are adamantly gross because crusty dried wet food. I confronted her about leaving them so I'd have to do them, and then she said that I misunderstood her intentions. She was just doing the dishes that she had energy for and putting out one of the fires. To me, we have a list of chores to do, and we can't consider them done until the whole thing is done. I told her that she can't half-ass the jobs in the house because it's making more work for me in the long run to clean up her messes. I told her that if she was a roommate, I would have moved out by now, and if I was her manager at a job, I would have fired her for making more work for me. She started crying and told me to leave her alone. I feel like a total asshole for saying those things. I feel like maybe I was being too hard on her, that maybe the chores are a lot for her to handle. But on the other hand, we have been living together for a long time, and she is old enough to know how to clean up after herself. Not the a-hole. Mary is displaying weaponized incompetence at a master level. Mary is the a-hole here. You are married. It's a partnership. She should be willing to do these tasks. God forbid you ever have a child with this woman. Will she forget to wash a child's clothes or forget to change a diaper? She should shape up or ship out. Not the a-hole. Mary is invested in incompetence because she believes it will excuse her from responsibility. You aren't her mommy, and she is no longer a child who has parents responsible for her. If she refuses to act responsibly, she is offloading those responsibilities to you. You have every right to find that unfair and to communicate that to her. Here's the next story. My 23F, girlfriend 22, has an extremely serious peanut allergy. Like eating almost nothing and having her throat blocked and ending up in the hospital. My friend 24F invited us to have lunch at her house along with other friends and sent me by text message what the menu would be. For dessert, one of the ingredients was peanuts, so I proposed that in order not to completely change the menu that she had been planning for days, I would take my girlfriend a cake because she is extremely allergic to peanuts, and so she wouldn't feel left out. My friend said it was okay and that was it. On lunch, at dessert time, my friend offered dessert to me and my girlfriend, and before my girlfriend took it, I told her that she couldn't eat it because it had peanuts. She hadn't noticed. She politely declined and took a piece of cake. I ate my friend's dessert, and since I can't kiss my girlfriend after eating peanuts, because again she has an allergy, and yes, it's that kind of allergy, I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth. When I got back, my friend was offering her dessert again and my girlfriend wasn't sure what to do. I asked what was going on and my friend said, letting the girl eat what she wants instead of having someone else control what she eats. And again, anytime my girlfriend eats peanuts, her throat closes up and she can eat minimal portions and then take medicine, but she can't take the risk and have to end up in the hospital, being a place where we know the risk currently and my girlfriend having pulmonary fibrosis. My girlfriend was asking for help, so I spoke quietly just to the three of us so she could stop forcing my girlfriend to eat her dessert, as she really can't. My friend stayed quiet and gave dessert to someone else, but I knew she was pissed off. The mood got weird between us, and after half an hour, I left. I was planning on texting her, apologizing, and explaining the whole situation, but as soon as I got home, there was a huge message saying that it was rude for us to turn down dessert, which I didn't, and that she was surprised at how controlling I am, and that it was rude of me to talk to her like that. Other friends who were at the party also sent saying I was rude. It's worth saying that my girlfriend is an extremely shy person, and often in some uncomfortable situations, we have some nonverbal signs agreed on when we need the other to help, and she gave me one. So I said that to my friend after saying more than 3 times that my girlfriend couldn't because of the peanuts. Am I the a-hole? Edit extra. I forgot to put it. I even asked my friend if it was at dessert on the menu, and she said yes. Extra, in the text she sent, it looked like she wasn't taking seriously how strong my girlfriend's allergy is. I think she thought it was more drama and an excuse not to eat her food. Extra, for those who are saying that my girlfriend should stand up for herself, I agree, but take into account that it's a party with my friends that she knows 1 or 2 out of the 10 people, and it's a thing of my country never say no to them when offered food. So in addition to being shy, she was in a house and didn't know many people, and it's considered rude to refuse food. And no, I didn't force her to go, it was her situation to meet my other friends with her consent. Extra GF, a small update, my girlfriend typed this. Yes, I'm shy and distracted. Opie had told me that there would be peanut dessert, but I forgot and ended up taking the plate. But she warned me and I said I couldn't eat for her friend because of the peanuts. When the OP went to the bathroom, her friend said I could eat if I wanted to because there wouldn't be someone controlling there. And I said clearly, thanks, but I'm really allergic to peanuts. And she kept insisting that it was just 1 bite and it wouldn't kill. So I asked my girlfriend to help when I saw her because I already said I couldn't eat. I didn't want to let the situation go bad and be rude to pass on this image of being rude on the first meeting with friends from the OP. But at the end of the day, we both came off as rude.